Jack and his wife, Lisa, were in a tough spot, homeless, jobless, and living out of their battered old sedan. The car had seen better days, but for now, it was their lifeline. Its cracked windshield and mismatched paint patches told a story of struggle, a story Jack and Lisa were all too familiar with. Their days were a mix of exhausting attempts to claw their way out of their situation. Lisa spent hours inside the library filling out endless forms, applying for assistance, and researching local charities. Jack, on the other hand, camped out in the car, using the library's free Wi-Fi to apply for jobs. The car was packed with everything they owned: clothes, blankets, a few pots and pans, and even some canned food. There wasn't much space to breathe, let alone relax. One afternoon, while Jack was hunched over his laptop in the cramped back seat, something jolted him out of his focus: a loud thunk. He looked up to see a shiny black SUV pulling into the spot next to him. The driver's door swung open, slamming hard into his car's passenger side. Jack froze for a moment, staring at the scene. His heart sank as he took in the damage: a fresh dent and scratch on his already pitiful car. The SUV's driver, a tall, slender woman with a sharp haircut, stepped out. She was dressed in a pristine white blouse and dark slacks, looking every bit the picture of wealth and sophistication. Their eyes met briefly, and Jack thought she might apologize. But she didn't. She simply stared at him for a moment, her expression cold and indifferent, before turning away. With her head held high, she strode into the library without a word, her heels clicking against the pavement. Jack sat there, stunned. His anger began to bubble up. "Not even a sorry," he muttered to himself. It wasn't just the dent. It was the way she looked at him, as though he were invisible, as though he didn't matter. For the next 30 minutes, Jack tried to distract himself by focusing on his job applications, but the incident gnawed at him. He kept replaying it in his head: the loud bang, the dismissive look, the way she walked off like he was beneath her notice. He glanced at the SUV occasionally, its glossy black paint gleaming under the sunlight. It was spotless, a stark contrast to his rusted, beat-up sedan. To her, his car was probably just a piece of junk, something unworthy of respect. By the time Lisa returned to the car, Jack was seething. She climbed into the passenger seat, balancing a folder full of paperwork on her lap. "Hey," she said, noticing his tense expression. "What's wrong?" Jack explained what had happened, his voice tight with frustration. Lisa frowned. "Did she really just walk away without saying anything?" "Not a word," Jack said. "She looked right at me and didn't even blink." Lisa shook her head. "Some people have no decency." That was all Jack needed to hear. Without saying anything, he opened his car door and slammed it into the side of the SUV once, twice, 3 times in quick succession. "Jack!" Lisa gasped. "What are you doing?" "She needs to know she can't just treat people like that," Jack said, his voice calm but firm. He glanced at the new dents he'd left in the SUV's once flawless paint. It wasn't enough to fix the imbalance of power he felt, but it gave him a small sense of satisfaction. Jack climbed into the driver's seat, maneuvering awkwardly around the piles of belongings in the car. He started the engine, and the two of them pulled out of the parking lot. As they drove away, Lisa stared out the window, her expression a mix of concern and understanding. "I get why you did it," she said quietly. "But, was it worth it?" Jack didn't answer right away. Part of him felt justified, but another part of him wondered if he'd just stooped to the same level as the woman who had wronged him. In the weeks that followed, Jack found himself thinking about the incident more often than he expected. At first, he felt a sense of pride. It had been a rare moment of standing up for himself in a world that seemed intent on keeping him down. But as time went on, his perspective began to shift. One day, he and Lisa were sitting in a park, sharing a sandwich and watching the cars pass by. Jack noticed a shiny black SUV in the distance and felt a pang of guilt. "I've been thinking about that woman," he admitted. Lisa raised an eyebrow. "What about her?" "I don't regret standing up for myself," Jack said slowly. "But maybe there was a better way to handle it. I let my anger get the best of me." Lisa nodded. "You were hurt. And when you're hurt, it's easy to act out. But what matters is what you do next." Jack took her words to heart. As their circumstances slowly improved, he eventually landed a job, and they moved into a small apartment. He began to see the world differently. The incident in the parking lot became a reminder of how desperation and anger could cloud his judgment. While he didn't entirely regret what he'd done, he made a silent promise to himself: the next time someone treated him like he didn't matter, he'd find a way to rise above it. Life had taught him many lessons, but the most important one was this: dignity wasn't something anyone could take away, it was something you chose to hold on to, no matter what.